God bless everyone. Today, I bring you the extraordinary testimony of Jonathan Hayes, a man whose life took a staggering turn after a chilling encounter that defies imagination. He claims to have seen Myles Munroe in the depths of hell, a sight that revealed not only the shocking truth about Myles, but also forced Jonathan to confront the hidden sins that had entangled his own soul. What he discovered shook him to his core and illuminated the path of Jesus in ways he never expected. Now, I will read Jonathan's letter exactly as he wrote it, so we can uncover the sin that led him to this revelation and why he witnessed such a haunting vision. My name is Jonathan Hayes, and for most of my 56 years, I lived a life many would envy. I was a retired financial advisor from Dallas, having built a career that granted me immense wealth, influence, and a sense of accomplishment. I had the kind of life that sparkled on the outside, luxurious homes, private parties, and the admiration of my peers. To the world, I was a man who had it all. But beneath the surface of my success lay a void I couldn't admit existed, a gnawing emptiness that no amount of money or achievement could fill. My days revolved around chasing more wealth, more prestige, more applause. My faith, though outwardly present, became little more than a checkbox on my list of responsibilities. I gave generously to the church, attended services, and even sponsored charitable events. But deep down, my spiritual commitments were overshadowed by my hunger for recognition. The more praise I received, the more I craved, using my acts of kindness not as a testament to my faith, but as a means to polish my image. My pride disguised itself as virtue, and I let it blind me to the hollowness of my pursuits. Looking back, I realize my outward generosity was a facade. My donations and good deeds were never truly for God or others. They were for me. They were a stage for my ego, a way to bask in admiration and inflate my own sense of worth. But at the time, I couldn't see it. I believed I was a good man, doing good things. It wasn't until my life took a dramatic and terrifying turn that I came face to face with the truth about myself and the path I was heading down. And what happened next? That's where my story truly begins. It was March 22nd, 2015, a date that's forever etched into my mind. My family and closest friends had gathered to celebrate my retirement on my private yacht, a luxurious symbol of the success I had worked so tirelessly to achieve. The party was everything I had envisioned: flowing drinks, laughter echoing across the waters of Lake Louisville, and the warm glow of the setting sun painting the scene in shades of gold. I let myself indulge more than usual, caught up in the joy of the moment. But as the night wore on and the drinks kept coming, my footing became less sure, and my head spun with a dangerous mix of intoxication and arrogance. I felt invincible until I wasn't. One misstep was all it took. I remember the sensation vividly, my feet slipping, my body lurching forward, and the cold, shocking embrace of the lake as I plunged into the water. The sounds of the party faded, replaced by a muffled silence as I sank deeper. I couldn't breathe, or so I thought. A darkness swept over me, and everything went blank. That's when it began. The moment I thought I was slipping into death turned into the beginning of something far more surreal, something that defied every notion of reality I had ever known. When I opened my eyes, or whatever sense it was that allowed me to perceive, I wasn't in my body anymore. I was watching it. My own lifeless form floated motionless on the surface of the water, illuminated faintly by the yacht's distant lights. Yet, instead of panic, I felt an eerie calm, as if this was how things were meant to be. It was a strange detachment, like I was observing someone else entirely. Little did I know, this was merely the threshold of a journey that would take me to places I could never have imagined. Places that would force me to confront the deepest truths about myself and my eternity. But before I could process any of it, the world around me began to shift. What happened next? That's where the real story begins. When I opened my eyes again, Everything had changed. The warm embrace of the lake was gone, replaced by an endless, barren wasteland. The air was thick, oppressive, and heavy with despair. I looked down at myself, shocked to see bright green flames dancing across my body. They didn't burn my flesh, but they seared into something deeper, my very soul. It was an excruciating pain that wasn't physical but emotional, spiritual, as if my very essence was being laid bare and judged. I wanted to scream, but my voice felt stolen, swallowed by the eerie silence of this forsaken place. Then they appeared. 3 grotesque reptilian figures emerging from the swirling mists. Their skin was dark and scaled, their eyes glowing a menacing red, and their presence radiated a cruel authority. They stared at me with cold, unfeeling expressions, and one of them spoke in a voice that felt like it scraped against my mind. "This is your new home." The words hit me like a blow, and my mind raced, trying to make sense of what they meant. Before I could ask or protest, they grabbed my arms with a grip like iron and began leading me forward through the desolation, offering no explanation, no mercy. As they vanished into the mist, I found myself alone, walking a road that seemed to stretch into infinity. The silence was deafening, the loneliness suffocating. Then, the images began. They appeared all around me, vivid and undeniable scenes from my life. I saw my moments of triumph and success, the wealth I had amassed, the accolades I had collected. But there was a dark undercurrent to each memory, a sharp contrast between my outward actions and my inner motivations. I saw myself brushing off my family, neglecting the people who needed me most, all in pursuit of my ambitions. The shadowy figures appeared again, whispering the truth I had refused to see. My greatest sin wasn't what I had done, but why I had done it. My life wasn't about serving God or others, it was about serving myself, feeding my pride and craving admiration. Their words cut deep, and as I stood there, trembling, I realized there was no hiding from the truth. And yet, this revelation was only the beginning of what I was about to face. The landscape around me was like nothing I had ever seen, and yet it felt disturbingly familiar, like a place I had always known but tried to forget. The ground beneath my feet was uneven and covered in sharp, jagged gray rocks that seemed to pierce through the souls of my being. A thick mist clung to the air, moving like restless spirits, obscuring the horizon and swallowing everything in its path. In the distance, towering structures loomed, dark, foreboding factories with no windows, their chimneys spewing streams of black smoke that vanished into the void above. Surrounding them were bottomless pits that seemed to breathe, exhaling an ominous heat that made the green flames on my body burn brighter, though they still didn't consume me. The sensations were overwhelming, almost unbearable. The flames stung my soul with a pain that defied explanation, a constant reminder of the torment I was enduring. The air itself was suffocating, thick with despair and an oppressive silence that was almost worse than any sound. Every breath I took felt like a burden, heavy and labored, as though the very atmosphere was conspiring against me. The silence wasn't empty. It was charged, filled with an unseen presence that made every moment more unbearable. It pressed down on me, amplifying the unease that already gripped my heart. But the most unsettling part of this place was the shadows. They danced and shifted in the mist, forming vague shapes that seemed almost human but not quite. They moved with an unsettling grace, their presence neither fully there nor entirely absent, like a haunting echo. These shadows weren't just part of the scenery, they felt alive, watching me, judging me. The images they brought with them flickered like a broken reel of film, flashing moments from my life that filled me with regret and shame. Each memory was like a knife twisting deeper into my soul. But as terrifying as this place was, I knew it wasn't the end of my journey. Something else waited ahead, something even more profound and shattering. I could feel it pulling me forward, and I had no choice but to face whatever lay beyond the mist. As I was led deeper into the dark and oppressive expanse, I came across a sight that froze me in place. There, chained to a massive wall, was a figure I recognized instantly: Myles Munroe. His once vibrant and commanding presence was reduced to something unrecognizable. His body appeared drained of all energy, and his eyes, once filled with vision and purpose, were now hollow and lifeless. He hung there silently, bound and defeated, as though the very essence of his soul had been stripped away. It was a shocking and jarring moment. This was a man whose sermons I had once admired, whose words had lit a fire in me at a time when I thought I was walking the right path. Seeing him in this state brought a crushing weight of despair over me. How could someone who spoke so passionately of God's work end up here? Then he spoke, his voice weak, yet laced with unmistakable regret. He confessed that pride had been his downfall. He revealed how he had chased worldly success, applause, and recognition, believing he was serving God, but instead feeding his own ego. His words struck me like lightning. I saw myself reflected in his every statement: my pride, my relentless pursuit of admiration, my misguided belief that my outward acts could mask my inner emptiness. He spoke of the emptiness of a life built on human validation and how it led him to this unthinkable fate. As I listened, I felt my soul quake under the weight of his confession. I wanted to scream, to run, to wake up from this nightmare, but I couldn't. Myles's voice faded, and I was left standing there, trembling, as his haunting words echoed in my mind. When I finally opened my eyes, I was no longer in that desolate place. Instead, I found myself lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by my family. Tears of relief and concern filled their eyes as they told me I had been in a coma for 17 days. The experience I had just gone through wasn't a dream. It was seared into every fiber of my being. Desperate for answers, I returned to my hometown, a small and quiet place that I hadn't visited in decades. There, in an old, humble church, I encountered a man unlike any other. His gaze pierced through every wall I had built around my heart. With scripture on his lips, he guided me to confess the sins I had long buried: my pride, my selfishness, my neglect of true service to God. As I wept and prayed, a peace I had never known washed over me, cleansing my heart and redirecting my life. But even then, I knew this was only the beginning of my transformation, and the path ahead would demand more than I ever thought possible. What happened next? That is something I'll never forget. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this incredible journey. What do you think about the experiences I've shared? Have you ever faced a moment that made you question everything and seek a deeper truth? Let me know in the comments below. I'm eager to hear your perspectives and how these revelations resonate with you. Your insights might just inspire someone else watching to reflect and share their own story.